Hello dear YouTuber friends, and I do hope you're all keeping well. Welcome to this new video. This is my setup and bindings for the Velocity 1 flight deck. Now until we get official bindings, possibly coming in the next sim update from Microsoft Flight Sim, so default bindings for the flight stick, I thought it would be useful to get something out there. So if you are getting the flight deck, or you do have the flight deck, you have some bindings to work with. So what I've done, I've set bindings up for a good number of these controls. Not all of them, there's blooming thousands of them, or hundreds of them at least, but a good deal of them. So I'm going to show you that in this video. I'm also, at the end of this video, I'm going to tell you how I found using the Velocity 1 flight deck over the past week or so. Have I had any issues? And how have I generally found using the flight deck? My impressions over the past week. And at the very end of the video, I'm going to announce our 2 screenshots of the month winners. If you don't know, on Discord, I was running a competition there to celebrate the 20,000 subscriber mark. So I'm giving away 2 prizes of £20 each, or the equivalent in your currency. And I'll be announcing that at the end of this video. Well, listen, that's quite a lot, isn't it? Let's not dilly-dally. Let's get on with this video. Okay, so you find me, in this case, set up at Southend Airport in the Cessna 182. Now, I could stay out to the cockpit for the moment. I'll get to control options, so options, control options. Bring in the camera. There we go. So I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to put the camera screen for you in an appropriate position, but actually manually hold the camera. It's going to be easier. I'm on the flight deck stick. So it's this part I'm on. These are 2 separate units. Keep that in mind. So I'm on this part. I'm just going to go through the primary flight controls, the basic ones. So the ailerons, left and right. So if you set that up, ailerons, search by input and just move your stick left and right. And same for elevator and rudder. Twist axis. Nothing too complex there. Control trimming surfaces, interesting one. Instead of using the trim wheel, and many people would go for that, I find this much more precise. I've got trim nose down, moving this hat switch, this one here. So which one is that? Hat 2, is it? Trying to read that. Oh no, it's this hat switch here. Moving that up will trim me down. Moving it up, down will trim me up. It just works so precisely. I prefer this than using a small trim wheel for trim. Just works much better, but that's preference. Control trimming surfaces, flaps. I've got that set. I'm going to call this, I think it's called technically an intermittent switch. So, you know, it doesn't actually click in one place, that you can switch it between 2 different switches. I'm going to call that a rocker switch, so it rocks between the 2 different settings. Decrease flaps up. Pull it down, it will increase flaps. Works beautifully, I've got to say. Whilst I'm here, I'm going to show you brakes as well. Now, as recommended by some people, actually I can remove this one just a second, because I had it set up to my trigger switch previously. Apply and save. So brakes, this little pinky switch on the front of the flight stick. Now, if I move that slightly, I've got it set to right brake axis. I'll keep that on screen for you, and left brake axis. Take a look at that in case you want to copy that. Because it's an axis. Oh, okay. Let me just go back. Sometimes it will do this. Go into control options again. Just bear with me. Doesn't always display correctly. Brakes. Now if I move it, yeah, so as you can see, if I move it slightly, you can see it's like a progressive brakes. Just works brilliantly. Doesn't give you differential braking, of course, so if you're using rudder there, you don't get the differential braking because you've got these set to both right and left axis. But it's great, it's just progressive brakes. A couple of people recommended that on the other video, and it does work very nicely indeed, I've got to say. Whilst we're on flight control services, or main controls, power management, I'm on the Flightdeck throttle now. Toggle parking brakes. I went for something obvious. Obviously, I'm going to be throttling up. This is right next to it. Nice big red button. Toggle parking brakes. And throttle. Now, you can set these as two different throttles. I'm in the 182. It's only got one throttle axis. So I've just set it for the main axis. If you're using aircraft with two different engines, set this as throttle 1 and throttle axis 2. Throttle axis 1, throttle axis 2. But that works fine in the Cessna 182 and 172 and that type of thing. So normal GA aircraft with just one throttle axis. Okay, let's move on with more settings. So back to some controls. I'm still in control options. I'm on the Flightdeck stick. Let me just bring in the camera. There we go. So I'm on this one now, just the flight stick. And I'm showing you some cockpit views there. Before I do, let me just show you the landing gear. It's quite self-explanatory. You've got this big landing gear lever here. Landing gear up and landing gear down. I keep it down as I'm in the Cessna 182. Pretty straightforward with that one though. But cockpit views, I've got a couple. PLVs, this one, PLV 1 I believe it is. So left, right, quick view, left and right. Next pilot position, previous pilot position. You can just search for these. So if I go to filter here and go to all, this is what you'll get under cockpit camera. Just search for them. You can either search by name or come down this list. You might have to scroll down if you're doing this step by step. Previous pilot position. Previous is down, next is up, and quick view left and right. But let's put it back just to tidy things up. Like I said, you can search for it that way, or search by name if you want to find all these controls that I've set up. I've got reset cockpit. Well, let me show you this one here. I've got cockpit view your axis. Now, which one will that be? That'll be left and right on this one. So, hat 3. Look how many hat switches we've got on this control stick. And there's another one down here. It's just balmy, isn't it? But your axis, left and right, and reverse axis there. I'll show you the importance of that later. And pitch axis, obviously up and down on that. And what this will allow you to do, and reset cockpit view, would be clicking that button there. What this will allow you to do, let me just get into the cockpit, there we go. Is my engine going to cut out? Maybe not. So left and right, it'll let you freely look around the cockpit. So your axis, left and right there. So that's with this hat switch. Click to reset cockpit view, cockpit quick view left, right, up and previous to get into your instruments. So it just works so well on this flight stick. It's one of the best controls for that. By the way, while I'm here, I've got this button here set to get me back into the menus. Isn't that great? So just go to control options again. So there you go. That's what the views I do have set up. And that button is toggle pause, I believe, for menu and miscellaneous. Set pause off. Set these two buttons on one button. I've got it set to this, and you can go back from these menus without pressing escape or resume down here. Okay, let's go back to cockpit cameras. One other thing I want to show you, well, a couple of other things. External view. So one thing, camera mode switches as well. External view and camera mode switches. Don't worry, I'll open these back up so you can copy these. This one here, so there's a button just here, can you see that? So when I've got my hand on my stick controlling all them, I've got my finger down here to toggle between cockpit and external view. And it's just set to that button, so that's in camera mode switches. Let me just move my flight stick back so I can get hold of my mouse. Camera mode switches, cockpit external view mode. Cockpit external view mode, it will just toggle between cockpit and external. You probably set that up hopefully in other controllers, but that's that button once again down here. Very easy to get to. And in external mode, I've got hat 1, I believe, yeah, to look around the aircraft smoothly. So external view, look up, look right, look left, look down. Let me just keep that on view for you. So an external camera, so it's under camera, external camera, cockpit lookup. I show this in other videos, but I'll keep it there for you in case you want to copy them. It's just basically look right, PLV right, hat 1, so it's this hat switch, PLV look left, look down and look up. Nothing too complex there. And again, set a button for cockpit external view mode under camera mode switches. And obviously what that does, press that button to get external, and then I can move around the aircraft. So many hat switches, it's just getting ridiculous, isn't it, with this unit? So there you go. So that's my camera mode switches. Oh, there is one other thing I want to show you. But what I'll do, I'll open the cockpit camera because that's the most complex one. So you've got cockpit, quick view left, right, up, previous pilot position, and next pilot position on hat 1. And cockpit yaw axis, left and right, on this hat switch, which will let you freely look around, and pitch axis. And reset cockpit view. I'll keep that open, search by name, all these controls if you need to find them. And you can set them up thus. There you go, that should be enough time for you to get those down. Pause the video if need be. There's one other view I've been experimenting with, and it's on the throttle quadrant. It's this. Now you may want to use this for propeller or mixture, which is probably better. But if I move that up and down, it actually acts like a zoom axis. Let me show you that. It does work. So there you go. You can move it and it will stay in that particular. So I'm moving this up slightly and then just center it just so it stops zooming. So you can actually zoom in quite well with that. I just thought that was quite neat because it acts like an axis. And zoom right out if you ever need to. I don't know why you would do, unless you wanted a panoramic view there. There you go. And that works well. And if you just need to reset your cockpit, the button I set up before to reset cockpit camera works well. So let me just show you that one again. So it's on the Flightdeck throttle camera, cockpit camera, and it's cockpit view zoom axis. So if you want to set an axis up like this to zoom, like I just showed you, that's where you'll find it. Camera mode switches. I've still got a button I can clear that because I've got my external view now set up on this button. So on the Flightdeck, I'm going to clear this button that I've got for cockpit and external mode. So I've already got it set up on the stick. Okay, let's continue with more settings. Okay, so continuing with controls, bring in the camera. Okay, so I'm going to show you, this is going to be quite complex now. Let's get to the flight stick part. And we'll click on Autopilot. Now, this bank of buttons I've left, you can see it, I've even color-coded it blue, which is nice for autopilot functions. So toggle Autopilot Master, turning your autopilot computer on and off. Autopilot nav 1, hold on. If you got a course set up, it will follow that. It's like pressing nav on your autopilot Garmin unit. So nav mode essentially. Heading hold. So I've tried to set them up logically. Big one here, Autopilot Master toggle, nav, heading, and approach hold. So if you're coming onto approach, you can press that. Well, that's the easy part out of the way. Oh, let's just go back, go to control options. We'll get to the throttle. This is where the complex stuff comes in now. Oh dear, can I do this in one shot? I wonder. So I'll click on the Flightdeck throttle and autopilot again. So these are two dials. You've got a top dial and small dial. Use the top dial for now. And if you want to set an autopilot altitude, this is the way you'll do it. So increase, moving it to the right, decrease autopilot reference altitude, moving it to the left. I'll show you this in sim. I'll show you a demonstration of all these controls working later. That should be self-explanatory. Vertical speed mode. I've used this dial down here to increase and decrease vertical speed, and click it in. It's a clickable button that will activate, like in the Cessna 182 or 172, it will activate vertical speed mode. Then you can increase or decrease vertical speed, your reference vertical speed. I'll be showing you that in practice later. Let me just keep that on screen for you for the moment so you can take a note of it. Oh, this is where it gets interesting. I'll open instruments and settings, flight instruments. There's a couple of things there. Let me go through these first. Increase and decrease heading bug. I've got it set, again, what I will call a rocker switch on the front of the throttle. It's this one here. So that will decrease my heading bug. I'll show you that later, and increase it, moving it down. Works really well. Yeah, which one should I show you now? I better open, this is why I said it's going to get complicated, radio and nav. So, increase. Take a note of what I've got set there, and I'll be showing you this later in the sim. Actually, I'll show you this one in a minute. Increase nav1 frequency, fractions basically, and carry. And I've got this set. There's a, oh, can I show you that in better detail? There's another PLV hat switch here. Increase, I've got it moving up. Decrease, moving down. You can reverse that if that's more intuitive to you, but that works fine for me. So that will increase the numbers and decrease nav1 settings. There's a button down here for nav1 swaps. So when you increase or decrease your standby frequency, which is the one you'll normally be affecting, press that, it will make it active. Should I show you that one? Let's get into the sim. Actually, I can use that button as I've got it set up. And I'll use, oops, there's a bit of a delay there. Do that, and then I'll just zoom in on this. So if I move that up and down, you can see it's moving through the numbers pretty quick. Now you think, why don't you have that on a dial? You'll have to move these dials. I've not got this set up as anything at the moment. That's just for demonstration. You'll have to move that dial really quickly to get those numbers to where you want them. So if it's on 14, to get it back down to 11 or something, which I will be setting up later actually. But as you can see, it goes through them quickly. If I want that frequency set as my active, switch. With that button I showed you before, switch nav1. So that's how you do it. This works really well. Typically that will be that way around, of course. And I can just change that frequency, and I click that to make it active. Really works really well, that. And don't use a dial for that, because you'll be turning that dial forever. And it's a bit jittery as well, the dial with nav frequencies. So that works well for that, and I might as well utilize one of those many hat switches and PLV switches on here. Radio, can we get back to that? So I've done that. Nav. We've got VOR as well. Get off nav. VOR and instruments and settings. Toggle GPS drive. What this does, I've set this hat switch up to increase, for the same reasons, increase the basically course mode, which I'll show you later in the sim rather than switching you backwards and forward. Increase and decrease VOR OBS, your OBS knob, essentially it'll do the same thing. Those are the settings for that. Because it's logical, I put the button next to it, which is, this is 3 buttons here, but the one in the center, to actually toggle between GPS and localizer 1, and that works well as well. I told you it's quite complex, this part. I'll keep that on screen because many of you may not have known where those settings were. So that will increase your OBS knob or course mode, basically. When you're lining up for an ILS, you have to put the correct courses. That will essentially move your OBS knob, increase and decrease it. And like I showed you before, feel that. That button there will switch between GPS and localizer 1 mode, and that's it. If any of these function, these are quite complex now, we're going deep into it. If any of these you're not sure of them, just pause the video and search by name to find these settings, and you can set these up the same way. Okay, what I'll do, I think that's the majority of the controls I've got set up there. So let me just make sure, just go through control options, Just bear with me. So I've shown you all them. I'm just making sure myself that I've gone through everything. Yep, just showed that. Flight control services, of course, with the stick. The brakes, I've shown them. Autopilot and landing gear. On the throttle. What have I got set up for oh yeah, I've got the zoom axis set up there. Radio, I've showed you those settings. Instruments are setting. I think I've showed you pretty much everything now that I've got set up. There's a lot more I can set up, but I think that should get you started. Let me show you a demonstration of how this works in Microsoft Flight Sim. Okay, so let me show you all these controls in action. Let me bring in the flight deck. Now, hopefully the camera's set up in the right place where you can see me using these controls. Got to click that button I set up before to toggle in between cockpit and external mode. And, as I showed you before, heading mode. Just take a look down here. Maybe that would be... Yeah, there we go. You can see... Oops, you can see the heading bug moving there. I'm just going to sync it like I tend to do to my general heading, just in case something goes awry. I've got a course set up from Southend to London City, Haddison International. So we'll be using nav mode on these buttons down here, as I showed you before. But let's just throttle up. I've got parking brake set as that. I can show you that brake in action here. I'm using the pinky switch just to brake slightly, not fully. If I brake fully, it should stop like that. So there you go. Like an incremental brake. And of course, rudder there, twisting away for rudder. Okay. Let's get up in the air. So we're getting to takeoff altitude. Oh, speed rather. Got a bit of trim like I showed you before. Looks beautifully set up just so I've got positive rate of climb, not too much. Let's just trim down a wee bit. Landing gear up. Autopilot on. Nav mode on. It's going to follow the course we got set up. I showed you the vertical speed before. Here's the vertical speed. It's not climbing quickly enough for me there. But it's starting to now. I'm going to press this. VS will light up down here. I can move this left to decrease the amount I'm climbing, vertical speed. And you can just take a look down here, in fact. This dial. So if I decrease it to 500, a few more clicks. That's an easy way to tell how much vertical speed you've got in the Cessna 182. 172, you'll have a display on the glass cockpit. Garmin glass cockpit. Here you don't have that, but just increase that and it is, you can hear it clicking to 1,000 feet per minute, which is thus. Use this hat switch to look around freely. Hey, wee, and press it. I can even zoom in with this, can't I? There we go, just get it back to where it was. If I can't find it, reset cockpit view. It all works beautifully. I don't have an autopilot altitude set up, stupid man. 1,700, 1,800. Vertical speed, we're still climbing up 1,000 feet per minute, so it will get to that. I'm going to get down to this Garmin system here. Now I know for London City Airport, using what I showed you before to switch my nav frequency to change it, I know it's 111.15 for runway 27. So I can use that hat switch. You can't see me doing it because of the camera's position, but I'm just moving that hat switch. As I showed you before, look back in the video if you're not sure. 111.15. Going to use the button to swap it to make it active. It's now, and as you can see there, ILS, EGLC, 27 left. And which button was it now? I believe it was this button to switch my GPS to CDI1. Yep, to VLOC basically. So to localize a mode. Let me reset my cockpit view. You can see, I've got my, I can put it into heading mode. Well, I can move my heading bug up just to sync it because we're in the right place. Activate heading mode. I'm now in heading mode. When that line starts to come down... Oh, no, I need to change my course, don't I? Oh, see, I'm jumping ahead. I've got videos on this, so do go and look for them in my playlist. I need to change my course. I believe the course select OBS will be 272 for runway 27. So I can use this hat switch I've got set up to move that course. Now I can either do that thinking, well, that's going to be west, isn't it? Which is... where's west? West is all the way up here. It's about there. And I've got... I can just hover over that. Of course, I've showed videos. Can I show you this again to get that display working? So I can see my course selectors on 266. So I just need to move that a few times to 272, 271, 272. I believe that's in general options to show that display that I just showed you there. Oh, can I remember this? Accessibility, there you go. Instrument name, tooltips, instant and on. Well, instant here. You may have to have that on. I'm not quite sure now, but I believe this is the important one. To get that display showing, so when you hover over an instrument, it will show you the display. 272, that's correct. Move my heading bug to the left. I'm in heading mode. Reset my cockpit view. Actually, move my next instrument view. I was down in previous instrument view. And heading, I can just move it to the left a little bit more, just so I can encourage that course deviation line to come in. And we'll be locked on to runway 2 ILS 27 left. I can even press my approach button now. You can press it now. I prefer to do it when that course deviation line is moving in, but I'm in approach mode. When that line moves in, you'll see I'll keep you here. It will lock onto it. Just go into external mode for the moment, just to see what's going on. A few people flying around. It's a fine old day, isn't it? There's the Thames. So that course deviation line will move in. Because I've got it in approach mode, it will just take me all the way down to the runway now. Do I need to prove this part to you? It could prolong the video, but let's just show you that part. Move my heading bug a little bit more to the left there. Keep in mind I'm in heading mode. Just going to encourage this line to move in, the course deviation line, just so it's all lined up with ILS 27. Got the correct course. I went through that pretty quick, but I've shown that in other videos. Go and look through my Back to Basics videos. I'll link that playlist down below in the description as well, if you're not sure about all the procedures I just did. But I'm just showing you all the button combinations that I've set up in this in use. And it's so versatile. There you go. It's locked onto the course now. So this line will start coming in, and it will take us down to 27 left at London City Airport under Autopilot. And even control the altitude. We just need to control our speed a little bit, which is easy to do. There you go, guys. I'm going to let that continue. I'll go and land it. But I'm going to take you now to my conclusion and how I found this system to be in use over the past week. So there you go. Those are my settings that I've currently got set up. Now, obviously, I've not got every control and every button set up. There's so many of them and so many things that you can set up for that with this flight deck rather. Maybe that's a good segue for me to tell you how I found this over the past week of use. I've got to say it's been one of the most enjoyable controllers that I own to set up and use, and that includes all that equipment you can see there, my Velocity 1 flight yoke or Velocity 1 flight stick, all those different controllers. This has probably been the most enjoyable to set up, and it's certainly, I would say, the most versatile. I've only used maybe 70% of, maybe, okay, 70% of the buttons on here. Not really utilized the touch screen yet, you've noticed. Maybe one or two little things work with that, but I do believe this needs patching in by a Sobel before this works properly. And I'm gonna wait for that. Maybe I'll come back on this touchscreen in a separate video. Over the past week though, massive enjoyment. I've had no issues with the LEDs, and goodness knows what. One or two people saying that their LEDs are fading out. I've had no issues with that. So I think as long as you update this using the app, go and look at my original review video, which is linked down in the description. As long as you update it properly, you shouldn't have too many issues. The flight stick itself is lovely to use. I did get a question, what's the firmness like compared to the Velocity 1 flight stick? It's not quite as stiff, not quite as firm as the Velocity 1 flight stick. The tension on this and the ergonomics, the way your hand feels, switching between cockpits, as I showed you before with that button I've got set up and looking around. The ergonomics and feel of this when you're in the air feel absolutely fantastic. Feels just right, as does the throttle tension. But that's going to be a person-to-person preference. The number of control and dials, it's great to see these dials act like buttons. It means you can set them for autopilot shenanigans like I've shown you in this video. And all these many different hat switches and goodness knows what. I've really enjoyed it, and I'm being absolutely honest, it is one of the most enjoyable controllers that I have. The most enjoyable controller I have to use. I generally go with my XPC yoke and my Logitech panels and my Logitech throttle quadrant as my main flight controls. I prefer to fly with yoke. When I'm not using this, I miss it, and when I see it, I'm going to see it all lit up. I'll just turn the lights off for this part of the video, just so hopefully you can pick up on the beauty of this. It's certainly the most beautiful flight peripheral that I own at the moment. Most pleasing looking, and yeah, one of the, well, the most fun to use, I would say. So that's my thoughts. Well, okay, now let me take you to the screenshots of the month winners. So onto the screenshot of the month winners. For those of you who didn't know, I ran a competition in Discord at the beginning, pretty much at the end of January, but the beginning of February, saying that to celebrate a 20,000 YouTube subscriber milestone, we're going to have 2 winners of screenshot of the month. Competition is now closed, chaps. Don't enter it now, it's closed. Each winning £20 each, or the equivalent in your currency. Competition will run to the end of February. Just post your best screenshots, Microsoft Flight Sim screenshots. And Soup started us off there with a lovely picture. Looks like some kind of advert. One of my favourites, this in fact. Looks like an EasyJet commercial, doesn't it? Wonderful pictures. Soup is now one of our admins in our Discord. Nice chap. And you can see some more pictures. Go and join the Discord if you haven't already. Screenshot of the month. You can come and view these for yourself. I'm going to come back to 1 or 2 of these. I even had a go myself, but I'm not entering the competition. This is just lovely weather. This was live weather flying over London there. Very atmospheric in the 146 during a live stream I did a while ago. Like I said, I'm going to come back to some of these stunners we had during this event. As you can see, Aaron there. Oh, Aaron. Lovely. Aaron. Fantastic pictures. And Bob there, very nice, with a fighter jet on your wing. Yeah, come and look at some of these pictures yourself. They are pretty stunning. I always enjoy running these competitions because you never quite know what you're going to get. Some fantastic. And I did say part way through there, don't use productivity. This is going for all the competitions, screenshot of the month competitions. Don't use productivity software to alter some of your pictures. I do believe some of them were, altered somewhat. So yeah, just be careful of that, people. And I think Rev there, some of these look like you use software to alter them after you've taken them, but then you posted the unaltered versions, which is good. So there you go. Anyway, come and look at these yourself. Some stunning pictures, as you can see there. And I think we're getting towards the end of it here, where I said the competition's closed. So let me show you. Myself and Susie looked over the screenshots, and we chose some pictures. Both of us chose 2 of the same pictures, and those are going to be the winners. There's a lovely one here by Soup in memory of Rosen, of course, Sean Rosen. Lovely picture there with, look at that, with cloud over the city, and very nice, Soup, very nice indeed. Mr. Rennie there, this is one of my favourites. Really enjoyed that one with the sun either setting or is it dawn, whichever. Fantastic picture. But like I said, myself and Susie chose 2. We both chose 2 the same. So these are going to be the winners. First one is Dougal. Really love this one with the city in the background, the night lighting here. The helicopter looks like it's just landed. Or are you getting out or getting in there? And a little camp. This would be the camp out utility, wouldn't it? Just really like the atmosphere of that. Susie picked that one too. So Dougal, you're our first winner. I'll message you. You'll be getting £20 or equivalent. And undoubtedly, Mike Tokes. Yeah, fantastic Spitfire. I mean, that would be fantastic on a wall, wouldn't it? Beautiful atmospheric picture there of the Spit. Who doesn't like the Spitfire? Beautiful picture, Mike. Congrats. You're our second winner. Or you're our joint winner with Dougal. Both wonderful pictures. So there you go, chaps. I'll type that up in the Discord channel, let people know who won. And if you're watching this video, you know anyway. So there you go. Let me know your thoughts on the video in general. Give it a like if you've enjoyed it. Subscribe for more. And I'll see you soon.